Okay, one more really simple component before we start into the actual tricky bit, which is the neck. Let's do the saddle. So let's right-click the saddle and say Open. And really, in the saddle, the only thing that we need from the master model is this line right here. You remember we needed more clearance for the low E string than for the high E string, because the low E string vibrates more, being that it's a lower note. So basically, the saddle needs to compensate for that, and that's what this line is for. The rest of this stuff is pretty much completely useless to us in here. So let's go to Delete. And we'll just delete all of these surface bodies because we don't need any of them. And then go into our imported geometry and hide all of our sketches except for the saddle height sketch, that very last one. Other than that, I mean, we're in pretty good shape here. So we'll just show our origin. And let's show our planes as well for the moment and hide this. So let's go to the front plane and create a sketch. Now we need a rectangle in this sketch. I'm going to do a corner-to-corner rectangle, something like that. Grab my Smart Dimension tool, and I need this to be 3 millimeters forward of the origin. Remember, this origin plane right here is exactly where we want the strings to touch. So that's where the actual saddle itself needs to exist, the saddle within the bridge, of course. We're kind of building the entire saddle and bridge as one assembly, and that's fine. And we'll add one more dimension and say that the total height of this thing is going to be 25 millimeters. And let's add a line down the middle of this, because actually we're going to separate this bridge into a couple of pieces. And we'll say that the distance from here to the outside edge is 75 millimeters. And then this width actually is driven based upon the width of the strings. So when I said we didn't need any of these, I lied. Let's go back through here and find this E string. I'll show that. And we know that we want this to be, let's say, 10 millimeters wider than the E string. So just select that E string and say we want a horizontal dimension 10 millimeters. So there we go. So we've got 10 millimeters from the E string, so we're definitely wider than the E string by a good margin. And we can exit this sketch. So next, let's go ahead and do a little extrusion. I'm going to extrude, let's just say this section. We'll extrude that right on up. And let's say we want 10 millimeters. That looks good. And looks like we're going to want to change our material on this guy. So we'll just make this our mahogany as well. Why not? We'll set that to be for the entire component. And also, there's more to this, though. Let's re-show that same sketch. You can actually reuse sketches in Solidworks. So over here in the Extrude feature, we've absorbed our sketch. But I can show it again, and then run the Extrude tool again, select that same sketch, and just use this other section. And we're just not going to come up quite so high. This time we're going to come up 3 millimeters, let's say. Click OK. And we're left with a basic bridge shape. And we can do more to sculpt that shape in a little while. First, let's get the dimensions right. So one more detail. Let's just grab this top face and do a sketch right on it. I'm going to drag my rectangle tool corner to corner from the origin straight back. We can just make it coincident with that outside edge there. And then make this, let's say we want it to be 0.125 inches, we'll say, because that's how thick our saddle is going to be. So we can exit that and do an extruded cut. We'll cut straight into this, and let's say that we want 5 millimeters just of extra there, just to hold our saddle in place. And then we'll go ahead and mirror it, and we can add our sculpting later. Let's just mirror this entire body across using merge solids, of course. And finally add our saddle. So I'll just go to this plane finally and grab a line tool. Just make a vertical line straight down here, go straight over and straight up. Let's just make sure that that's vertical there. Good stuff. And take this edge and convert entities right into the sketch. Looking pretty good so far. And finally, because I'm feeling lazy at this moment, let's just take this edge and control click this edge and make those coincident, or collinear I should say. So there we go. Looks good. We'll go to features and extrude that the other direction by 0.125 inches. But we do not want to merge result. Click OK. And now we have what can eventually be a saddle for us if we want it. So we can hide that sketch. Hide this sketch. And that is the basic idea. Now let's get in here to our plastics, and we'll grab a medium gloss plastic, let's say, and grab kind of a, let's just grab this kind of cream colored one. Use that for the saddle, only for that body though. And now we're ready to sculpt this if we want to. This is just a very basic shape, and we can make it look however we want. So let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go before our mirror operation. And first I'll go to my surfaces. No, sorry. First I'll go to my direct editing tab, move face. Select this face. Let's go to rotate. And then in the parameters for that, I'm going to grab an axis of rotation, which will be this edge right here. I'm going to rotate that a little bit. Let's say, I don't know, let's say 8 degrees. Click OK. And that looks pretty good. I'd also like to kind of crown this surface so that it's kind of rounded from front to back on here. So why don't we just go to, we'll take our right plane, do a little sketch, drag a 3-point arc right out here into space. And you could dimension that however you want to. Like I said, I'm feeling lazy right now. I don't really care that much about it. So let's just extrude this guy straight on out, all the way out so that it extends beyond everything. I mainly care what it looks like at this point. So there we go. We'll just go to our replace face tool, choose what we want to replace it with, click OK. Now we can hide that surface, and we're left with a crowned surface on our part here. We can add some fillets to these corners with a constant radius, and let's say we want those to be, I don't know, 5 millimeters. That looks pretty good. And this back edge isn't all that important here, so we could actually round this off if we wanted to, make that, say, maybe 3 millimeters. And probably this edge too could also be 3 millimeters. Click OK. That looks pretty good. And you know, I'm pretty happy with that so far. All right, so let's go back and back to the future. Put the rest of it back, looking pretty good. One last thing, our saddle, we're going to want to bevel this edge a little bit so that the front edge of the saddle is the only place where the string touches. So we can actually do that. I would probably use the draft tool personally. So I would go to the features and grab a draft tool. We choose this as our neutral plane because we don't want for this edge to move at all. And we choose faces to draft. We're going to choose that one. Then we choose how much we want to draft it. Let's say 20 degrees. And click OK. And we did it backwards. No problem. We'll just flip that around by flipping the neutral plane. Click OK. There we go. Now we have our saddle in place. So let's just exit this guy. Click Save. And we can show it in our assembly. Use Show Components. That looks really wicked wide, right? That's probably way too wide. So we can actually even edit this in context. So I'm going to edit this sketch right here in the context of the guitar. Say the 75 just feels really excessive to me. So we could make that 50, for example. Exit here. That looks a lot better. All right, so let's hide that sketch. And now we are off to the races. And it's time to add the neck, which is going to be the most difficult part. So stay tuned.